Good morning. Wow, I don't know where to start today. My mind has got so many things thinking about justice, I don't even know where to begin. So the virtue of the week, justice. The definition, to give others their due. What does that mean? To make sure that everybody is getting what they deserve because they are created in the image of God and deserve dignity. So when we think of justice, I think the first thought that comes to my mind is social justice. And that helps us understand, I think, the definition. There are people who suffer. There are people who are not getting what they deserve and what they are due. There's enough food to feed people in the world. Why are people dying of starvation? I know when we do one of our mission pieces in 6th grade, one of the statistics, and I know it's an old one, but it's something equivalent to 3 jetliners full of children. Like if you would picture 3 jetliners full of children, that many kids die every day from starvation. When there's a plane crash, isn't it on the news? Isn't it something we're shocked? Yet that type of thing happens every day because of a social injustice in the world where people are not getting their due. So that often when I think of justice, that's like where my mind goes. How people are being persecuted, how people are oppressed. I was watching an interesting video about this, and as it went through even biblical times, that people who oppressed often then rose to power, and shockingly, those very people who had been oppressed began to oppress others. Like they even knew what it was like, yet they repeat history, right? Because I don't know, as human beings, I often think, I think of God as very human sometimes, and I imagine him being like, what is going on, people? Like, I've showed you this. You've experienced it. Why can't you change it? Well, that's why we have virtues, right? We want to try to develop those things. So I want to take a little spin on that because I think for us, where do we start with this? How do we get to the point to where we can be worried about the world in general and all the social injustices? And I think it has to start very near and dear to our own hearts, to us. Why do we have a hard time giving other people their due? Because we're so incredibly worried about getting ours. I started thinking about that, and I thought every sinful moment in my life, if I really break it down, it comes down to my own selfishness. I am worried about me and not other people. And if you would take a minute, I don't know, this is where my mind has gone, but if you would take a minute and think about the problems in the world, I feel like I haven't been able to come up with one yet, but most of them come down to selfishness. And that is the opposite of virtue, right? We can think about this in terms of everything. First one that came to mind today when I was sitting here praying was, we need to give God his due. Does he deserve our attention, our prayer, our respect? And do we do that even in the littlest things? Can we train ourselves to do that? And if we started with something small, could we start to train ourselves? And when you train yourself, you get a little bit better all the time. When we pray, do we fold our hands in respect? Because God deserves that, doesn't he? Was that selfish? Imagine if God was selfish. Yikes. Like that would be terrifying. Would we have been saved? No. God gave all for the other. So what does that look like in middle school? What does that look like at the age where you are now? And I think every behavior thing that we see comes down to that selfishness. It's all about me. It's all about me getting my due. I'm going to run down to lunch, even though we're not supposed to run. I'm going to run down to lunch because why? Because I want to be the first one in line. Because I'm worried about me getting what I deserve. That's a really simple thing, and probably not the most gigantic sin we would commit. But do you see how that represents our selfishness? Just talking in class when somebody else is talking. Is that respectful of others? Is it giving them their due? No. And why do we do that? Because in that moment, I think it's all about me and what I want to say. Have you ever been in a movie and people are talking and you can't enjoy the movie, like you can't? And I think that happens more and more all the time. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the good of the other. Look at where society is with so many problems. And they all come down to the fact that we are very focused, and this is human nature, I think, somewhat, but we have to fight against it and build that virtue. It's all about me. Millions of innocent babies lose their lives. Why? Because for prospective parents, and I know it's not always easy, I can't even imagine, but it's all of a sudden become about them. What if we focused on the good of the other? Abortion wouldn't exist. What about robbery? People take something small, not a big deal. Why do we do that? Because it's about me and what I want right now. But it's being disrespectful. There is a victim, right? There's the store owner. There's the rest of people who have to pay to make up for those things. Everything we do affects others. And when we become so focused on what's fair, that's not fair, I deserve this, I deserve that, why do you get this if I don't get it? If we get caught up in that, everybody suffers, including ourselves. And I really think that, until we can identify that and focus on that for ourselves, what hope do we have of creating justice in the world? Have you ever said that's not fair? I have. Who were we worried about? Who were we worried about in that moment? Ourselves. That's what I want our focus to be on this week. It's a small step, I think, but I think it's the beginning of our ability to understand what justice is. Giving others their due. It's not about me, and I want you to say that in your own mind to yourself. It's not about me. It's about the good of others. Simple disruptions in class, it's not about me. It's about everybody else in here and them being able to get what they deserve in this moment. I think this one simple thought could be transformative for you and for me. And once we can get that under control, then we can reach out and start to make a difference in the world. But this week, if you are caught doing something, by caught I mean maybe in your own mind and in that moment, and you're doing something you shouldn't, maybe just say to yourself, it's not about me. And I think we could see great things happen in a very short amount of time. So let's start there this week. Justice.